Hello, my name is Michael Driscoll, and today we are going to learn about tuples, also pronounced as tuples. Tuples or tuples are another sequence type in Python. Tuples consist of a number of values that are separated by commas. Tuples are immutable, whereas a Python list is not. So you can add and remove or even change items in a list. Tuples, you cannot do any of those things. So it's a fixed value and they cannot change. So, as I just said, you cannot add, delete, or modify. They are useful in certain situations where you need a constant hash value, such as a dictionary key. There are several different ways to create tuples. One easy way to do it is to use parentheses, and you can create the items, and it'll take any items. You could have a tuple of lists, a tuple of dictionaries, a tuple of integers, a tuple that has an integers, lists, and another tuple inside of it. There's lots of different ways to do that. Anyway, if you run this code, you'll see that it creates a tuple of type tuple. You can get that by using Python's type to introspect your item type. So, if I created a list with square braces and asked it what type it is, it would tell me it's a list. So in this case, we can show that it's a tuple. We can also ask the tuple how long it is by saying length of a tuple. len gets you the length. So now we can see it has two items in it. You could cast a list into a tuple. So here we have a list that contains three strings, 1, 2, and 3. Note the square brackets here. To cast it into a tuple, you can use the tuple keyword function. So if we run this, you can see that it has become a tuple. We could print it out as well, and you can see that now it has regular braces instead of square braces. So when it comes to working with tuples, there's not really a whole lot you can do with them because they're immutable, as I said earlier. If you run dir, which is a Python command or function, you'd find that tuples have only two methods, count and index. You could use count to find out how many elements match the value that you pass in. So, if you say, I want to count the number of 3's in the tuple, it would tell you that there's 2 in this particular tuple. If you asked how many 2's are in your tuple, it would just tell you that there's 1. So, that's how you could use that particular function. The index, not function, method. The index method is used to find the first index of a value. So, I'm not sure why I'm doing that. Let's do index. Say we do index of 2. You can see that it is at the second element. So 0, 1, 2, 3. Let's ask it what the fourth one is. Oops. Index, that's out of range, basically. So there is no fourth or fifth element in this case, because as usual in Python, everything starts at 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 is outside of the length of the tuple. So that doesn't work. 5 doesn't work. But if you ask it what 3 is, you'll get back the number 2, which tells you what index it's at. So this is index 2. No, I mean this is index 2. My bad. 0, 1, 2. No, this is index 2. So I get myself confused there. All right, let's try to modify an element in your tuple. So you can try to modify it. Let's actually access it first before we modify it. So if we access it, you can see that tuple 0 is just, the first element is 1. If we try to assign a new value to it, though, you will get a type error because tuples don't support modification. All right, let's see. Let's learn about concatenating tuples. Interestingly, tuples can be concatenated together, but when you do that, you'll end up by creating a brand new tuple. So let's say we want to run this code. If you do concat, you do a tuple is 1, 2, 3, 3. We'll print out the ID. Then we'll say a tuple equals a tuple plus another tuple, and then print out its ID. Let's do this. Let's do print And we'll print this one out too. All right. So when we print this out, you can see that the ID has changed. When it first got printed out, it ended with 80, and the second time it prints out, it's 52. So that tells you that the tuple has changed, which indicates, that tuples are still immutable. There are some special case tuples. Basically just two types of special case tuples. A tuple that has 0 items and a tuple with 1 item. The reason I can call these special cases is that they take a special kind of syntax to create them. It just looks a little bit odd. So let's create an empty tuple. This one's pretty obvious and pretty easy to do. Empty tuple is just using the tuple function to create an empty tuple. If you run this code, you can see that the empty tuple is empty. If you run this code, you can see that it just returns open close parenthesis. Another way to create an empty tuple is just to say empty equal variable name equals open close parenthesis. Again, you'll end up with a 0 length tuple. Let's go ahead and create a tuple with just a single element in it. So to create a single element tuple, you just do name variable equals to, and then note the comma at the end. That will tell Python that you want to create a tuple. If you run this, you'll see that it only has a single item in it. Another way to create a tuple, which I forgot to mention earlier, is let's say we want to do my tuple equals 1, 2, 3. Now we can print the type. Or actually, we don't need to print. We can just say type of my tuple is a tuple. So as long as you have commas after it, that just tells Python, hey, this is a tuple. And you'll actually see this kind of syntax a lot. So if you'll see this kind of thing where you create a function, my function, and it returns a tuple. So it'll return some values. And when you see something like that, let's say I'll call this ret equals my function print. We'll just do type of ret. I forgot to put the semicolon in there. Anyway, you'll see this a lot where people will create a function and it does a bunch of things and it'll return 2 or more items. If it returns the 2 or more items as a comma separated group of items, you'll quickly find out that that is a tuple that is returning. So just kind of watch out for that. It's not always obvious what's going on when you see a function like that. Anyway, let's go ahead and continue. If you have any questions about this particular talk, feel free to drop them in the comments or send me an email through my blog. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.